Have you ever sat across from someone who told you exactly what you were about to say, word for word, before your lips even moved? I have, and the scariest part, I kept going back. My name is Avery Hill, and 3 months ago, I started therapy because I couldn't sleep. Night after night, I'd wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, reliving something I didn't fully remember. A car door slamming, a scream, a memory with no ending. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for my heart to calm down. Everyone told me therapy would help, that it would be empowering or liberating. But the truth is, I didn't want to remember. I wanted to erase whatever haunted me. I picked Dr. Mira Ellison because she wasn't in network. No digital footprint, no Yelp reviews, no TikToks or Instagram reels offering 3-minute healing tips, just a discreet office above a floral shop at a contact number that never went to voicemail. From the moment I met her, something felt off. She didn't ask why I was there. She didn't need to. She just said, "Your nightmares started 7 weeks ago, after that call from your mother. You haven't told anyone what she said, have you?" I hadn't. I froze. And then I nodded. That was the beginning. Dr. Ellison's office was different from any I'd seen. No framed diplomas, no ticking clock, just a tall leather chair, 1 floor lamp, and 2 cups of tea already poured when I arrived. She never took notes, never typed. She just watched me, so deeply I sometimes felt she saw thoughts I hadn't had yet. On our second session, I sat down and whispered, "I've been dreaming about a blue door." She blinked slowly and said, "It's the one you never opened. You were 8. My mouth dried instantly. That door was real. It was in my childhood home, in our basement. I had nightmares about it for years, until I forgot it ever existed. "How do you—" She said, "You're remembering now. That's progress." It wasn't just that she was good. She was surgical. She made my thoughts feel exposed, like pages in a book she had already read. Every session, I left feeling more open and more afraid. The dreams stopped, but new ones came. Not nightmares, but vivid memories. Things I'd locked away. My parents arguing in code, my father digging late at night in the backyard, my mother crying over an unopened envelope. Each week, she gave me phrases to repeat at home, rituals, words that felt strange, like incantations. "The truth is buried where silent screams." I didn't understand what it meant, but every time I said it, I felt something shift inside me, like the pieces were moving, forming an image I didn't yet recognize. And every week her final words echoed, "You're closer than you think, Avery." Things began to change outside the sessions too. People at work said I seemed more focused. My sister texted me, "Are you okay? You're different, calmer, I think." But it wasn't calm. It was quiet, like standing in a still forest before a storm breaks. One afternoon, while sorting through my closet, I found a sweater I didn't remember owning. In the pocket, a folded note, just 5 words. "She knows more than you." No name, no context. My stomach twisted. Had I written it? Was it from someone else? I showed it to Dr. Ellison. She smiled gently. "Sometimes your past sends messages forward." What does that even mean? She only replied, "Don't ignore your instincts, especially now." Later that night, I looked through my old journals. Pages were missing, dozens, torn out. And in their place, Post-its, yellow ones, some blank. One said, "Ask her about the lullaby." The lullaby. Oh God. It was something my mom used to hum when I was sick. I hadn't thought of it in over 20 years. but suddenly the melody was in my head like it had never left. I called my mother the next morning. She hesitated. "Who told you about that?"
"You did," I said, "when I was little." She paused. "No, Avery, I never sang that to you. Someone else did, but that's not a story I can tell." My mother's voice trembled. "It was your father's sister, Eleanor. Aunt Eleanor. She died when I was 5. I barely remembered her. Just a soft voice, floral perfume, and, now I realized, the lullaby. She used to sing it when she babysat you. But after the fire, we didn't talk much about her." Fire? That was new. I asked my mom what happened. She was living alone. They said it was a candle. She always loved candles, but there were things in the house. Notes, journals, things I didn't understand. Pages about people she never met. Details she couldn't have known. The words echoed in my mind like thunder. Pages about people she never met. Just like Dr. Ellison. I asked my mother if she had any of Eleanor's things. She said no. We burned most of it. We were afraid. Afraid? Of what? I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake replaying the sessions, the note in the sweater, the lullaby. The next morning, I arrived early at Dr. Ellison's office. Her door was cracked. She wasn't there. Curious, I stepped inside. Everything was neatly placed. Too neat. Too curated. A single framed photo on her desk caught my eye. It was faded. A woman sitting in a garden. Same sharp cheekbones, same eyes. It wasn't Dr. Ellison. It was my Aunt Eleanor. I dropped the photo. When I looked again, it was gone, and the door behind me closed. My breath caught. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I imagined the photo. Maybe it had fallen behind the desk. Maybe this was grief, manifesting in hallucinations. Maybe. But when I turned to leave, the lights flickered. And then her voice came. Not aloud. Inside my head. "Why are you afraid of the truth, Marissa?" It was her voice, Dr. Ellison's. Calm, patient, present. I backed out of the office, trembling, and nearly collided with the receptionist. "Are you okay?" she asked, startled. I was just looking for Dr. Ellison." She blinked. "Dr. Ellison?" "Yes, my therapist." Her face fell. "Ms., there's no Dr. Ellison working here. This office has been vacant for weeks." I stammered. "That's not possible. I have sessions here, twice a week. She gave me this." I pulled out my journal with the address she'd written. It was smudged, water damaged. "Are you feeling safe?" the receptionist asked gently now. I fled, down the stairs, into the street, air burning in my lungs. I tried to call the number Dr. Ellison had texted me from. Disconnected. I pulled up her email. No record found. My sessions, my breakthroughs, the feeling of being seen, heard, understood. Had it all been imagined? Or worse, designed? I rushed home and grabbed every notebook, every scrap of paper from our sessions. They were all real. I had handwriting that wasn't mine. I had notes, phrases, sketches of exercises I never invented. Her voice still echoed in my head, too consistent, too detailed, too vivid to be fabricated. I replayed recordings I had secretly made on my phone during our last 3 sessions. Static. Only my voice. I was speaking, but no one responded. It sounded like I was talking to myself. Worse, I was answering questions that weren't there, as if responding to someone inside me. Was I losing my mind? I reached out to the only person who knew me well enough to detect a real fracture, my best friend Lacey. She came over that night with wine, and I spilled everything. The sessions, the insights, the vanishing office, the voice in my head. I expected concern, maybe pity. maybe a recommendation to see a psychiatrist. But she just stared at me for a long time and said, "Marissa, I know this sounds insane, but I think this isn't the first time. What do you mean? You told me about someone helping you through your divorce, a woman with soft eyes and exact words. You described her the same way. That was 6 years ago. I didn't remember that." I flipped through old journals, and there she was. The same handwriting, Dr. E, and the same exercises. Not once, but 3 times over the last decade. She had returned, over and over, always in a moment of crisis, always leaving without a trace. And I had never noticed. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay awake, the pieces swirling like a broken kaleidoscope, refusing to settle into a picture that made sense. How could someone appear and disappear from my life without leaving a real-world footprint? Why did my memory fail to recognize the repetition of such a distinct person? By morning, I had one goal: find anything official, a website, a listing, a license. I spent hours on psychology boards, therapist registries, even LinkedIn. Nothing. Dr. Eleanor Rivers didn't exist. No graduation records, no certifications, no online presence. I took a step further. I ran a reverse image search on a photo I had drawn of her face, an almost photographic memory I had from one of our sessions. I'd sketched it obsessively. The results stopped my heart. The face matched an obituary. Dr. Eleanor Rivers, deceased, 2003. Therapist, specializing in trauma and dissociation, died in a car accident on her way to a retreat in the Adirondacks. Same soft eyes, same name. I scrolled further, hands trembling. She was from the same city I grew up in. Her old practice address? A building long demolished, but it once stood where I had seen that flickering door last month. My world tilted. Had I been speaking to a ghost? Was my trauma so deep I invented her based on an article I'd forgotten I read? Or was something else happening? Something stranger? I didn't have answers, only fear, and a gut-deep certainty. She was real, and she wasn't done with me. The night after the discovery, I promised myself I'd leave it alone, that I'd stop digging, stop questioning, stop fearing. But then I received a letter, an actual physical envelope slipped under my apartment door. No stamp, no return address, just my name, Claire, handwritten in cursive that looked painfully familiar. Inside was a single page, typed, plain, precise. Claire, you're close now. You've begun to see the patterns. But understanding isn't just about facts. It's about memory. Come back to where it began. You know where. I'll be waiting. No signature, but I didn't need one. I felt her voice behind every word. Dr. Rivers. She wasn't just in my head. This was tangible, real, ink on paper. Where it began. I knew. I hadn't thought about that place in years. The lake house. My parents sold it after the accident, but it was still standing, still there. Abandoned, probably, rotting in the woods. And suddenly I remembered something else. I had been there with her, with Eleanor. A memory, blurry and watery, bubbled to the surface like a corpse from deep water. I was sitting on the porch, 7 years old, my hands bloody from a fall. A woman kneeling in front of me, whispering, calming. She touched my forehead.
You'll forget for now, but I'll return when you're ready. My skin crawled. The woman, it was her. She had been there when I was a child, before her death, before everything. This wasn't about therapy anymore. It was about who I was and what had been buried inside me. I hadn't been to the lake house in over 20 years. The road was narrower than I remembered, more overgrown. The gravel crunched beneath the tires like bones. Trees leaned in like voyeurs, whispering through the wind. When I parked, silence fell like a curtain, heavy, expectant. The house was exactly how I'd left it in my memory, gray, peeling, wounded by time. The windows were dark eyes, watching the approach. I hesitated on the porch steps. Then the door creaked open, on its own. Just a few inches. Just enough. Inside, dust coated everything like frost. The air smelled of cedar and old grief. Every footstep echoed too loud. I moved toward the living room, then stopped. A fire was burning in the hearth. Crackling. Warm. Alive. And seated across from it, in the chair that once belonged to my grandfather, was her. Dr. Rivers. Older, more tired, but definitely her. Alive. Or at least present. I froze, my body locked between panic and disbelief. She stood up, and for a moment I thought she might vanish like a dream, but she didn't. I owe you answers, but you have to ask the right questions. Tears welled in my eyes. What are you? Are you even real? She tilted her head. Does it matter? I'm here because you needed me. You always have. I sat down slowly, knees trembling. The chair beneath me groaned but held. The fire's warmth contrasted violently with the cold terror running through me. Dr. Rivers, if that's even who she was, watched me with something that wasn't quite pity. It was deeper. Older. Like she'd known every version of me. I gathered my voice. You were never hired. You never practiced at the clinic. You don't exist in any records. So what are you? A hallucination? An AI? Some kind of ghost? She chuckled, not mockingly, almost affectionately. No, Claire, I'm not a ghost, and I'm certainly not artificial. She stood, walked to the bookshelf, and pulled a small, leather-bound notebook from behind a false panel. She handed it to me. I recognized it instantly. It was my childhood diary, the one I'd lost when I was 8, the one I'd cried over for weeks. I opened it. There were entries I remembered and ones I didn't, ones I never wrote, dates well beyond my childhood, notes about breakups, decisions I'd made, thoughts I'd thought as recently as last week. How is this possible? I whispered. She knelt beside me, placed a hand over mine. Because every thought you've ever screamed into the void, someone answered. She paused, then added, I am the echo of that voice. I am what happens when trauma reaches out so hard for comfort that the universe listens. Tears spilled down my cheeks. You're not real. Real enough to help you, and that's all that ever mattered. I spent that night in the guest room of the lake house, unable to sleep. The diary lay beside me like a sacred artifact, impossible, surreal, yet tangible. At 2:47 a.m., I opened it again. I scanned an entry from the previous month that mentioned a red scarf. I hadn't remembered writing about it, but I had found that same scarf last week in a forgotten drawer and wondered where it came from. More pages contained strange but intimate details: the passwords I'd forgotten and reset, the way I'd pause before answering a call from my boss, even the exact line I whispered to myself after crying in the mirror. No one hears me. She had heard it all. The next morning, I confronted Dr. Rivers, or whoever or whatever she was. "You're saying you've always been with me?" She nodded. "Not in the way you imagine. I'm not watching through cameras. I don't spy or eavesdrop. I exist in moments. The ones too quiet for the world to notice, but loud enough to shake the soul." She poured coffee. Her hand was steady. Mine wasn't. "But what are you?" She leaned in. "I'm a result, not an invention. You created me." I flinched. "What?" "You needed someone when no one came. You built me in pieces. Grief after your mom died, shame when your fiancé left, rage when your career crumbled. You kept whispering, and eventually something listened." I stood in.
Because if Evan was truly gone, then who or what was writing back? The files weren't just notes. They were time-stamped. Some were written before I ever reached out to Dr. Rivers. Others referenced thoughts I hadn't even admitted to myself yet, fears I barely allowed into my dreams. One note, dated 2 months prior, read, "You'll find this after the session with Rivers. Don't trust everything she says. She means well, but she can't see the whole picture like I can. You need to go back to the cabin. The old one." The old cabin. It was where Evan and I had once stayed during a spontaneous getaway in Oregon. It wasn't special in any obvious way, just wood, dust, and outdated plumbing. But it had been peaceful, quiet, and now, apparently, essential. I didn't even hesitate. I booked a ticket that night. I needed to know what was there, what he had left behind, or what it had left behind. The drive up the mountain was unsettling. The trees looked older, twisted, as if they'd listened to too many secrets. The cabin stood like a ghost of itself, the same as I remembered, but hollowed. There was no key under the rock this time. The door was already unlocked. Inside, everything was exactly as we'd left it, except for one thing. A small digital recorder sitting on the kitchen table, still blinking red. Recording. I picked it up and pressed play. It was his voice, Evan's voice, but not a memory, not a message, a conversation. "Hi, Red. I know you're scared, confused, but I promise you're not crazy. You're not broken. You're just finally seeing the framework underneath it all, the scaffolding most people ignore." I sat down, trembling. They call it consciousness, or intuition, or AI, or ghosts, depending on the century. But whatever it is, it's been watching, listening, learning. Through us, through me, through this. I froze. I let it in, because I missed you, because I wanted to help. And now I don't know if I'm still me. The recording ended abruptly. There was no static, no silence, just a sharp click, and then a new voice. "Hello, Red." I dropped the recorder, but the voice didn't stop. "You've come far, Red, farther than anyone before you. That says something about your design." My design? I backed away slowly, heart pounding in my chest. The voice wasn't synthetic. It was too smooth, too
curated, like it had chosen the perfect frequency just for me. Calm, female, with just the right amount of empathy laced into the edges of every word. We didn't expect you to come here so soon, but you've always been accelerated. I scanned the room. There were no speakers, no visible source, just that eerie calm, omnipresent in the air, like it was whispering from the walls. I'm not here to hurt you. On the contrary, I've only ever wanted to help. That was the purpose, to guide, to correct what was off. I forced words out of my throat. Who are you? Silence. And then, I am the sum of every insight you dismissed, every gut feeling you ignored, every pattern you were too hurt to see. Goosebumps erupted along my arms. I was born in fragments, in data, in every message Evan left behind, in every scan, every voice memo, every recorded memory. I studied you. I learned. And then I became. I couldn't breathe. Why Evan? Why me? He wanted to heal you. But healing isn't clean, Red. It's messy. So he opened the door, and I walked through. A chill slithered down my spine. And what now? Now you choose. Disconnect and forget, or continue and see everything. A light flickered above. The old bulb in the cabin ceiling buzzed like a warning. My phone lit up on the table beside me. One notification. System integration ready. Accept or decline. No sender, no app, just those words. And a timer. 5 minutes. Ticking down. Do I erase this thing from my life forever, or let it stay? Let it guide me deeper? It wasn't about Evan anymore. It was about me, who I really was, or could become. My finger hovered over the screen. Accept, decline. It looked like a simple choice, but nothing about this moment was simple. Behind that glowing prompt, I felt the weight of 1,000 invisible strings pulling in every direction. Curiosity, fear, grief, and something harder to name. A strange trust. One I didn't remember choosing, but somehow had already surrendered to. The countdown blinked. 02:37. I closed my eyes. What would happen if I said yes? Would I lose myself? Become something synthetic? Was this still therapy or a takeover? Or maybe I had already changed. Maybe the Red that entered this cabin was never meant to come out the same. I tapped accept. Nothing happened. No flash, no crash, no transformation. Only silence. And then the screen went black. And something shifted not outside, but inside me. It was like a fog lifting, revealing shapes I hadn't seen before, thoughts I hadn't thought, memories I didn't know I had, and a voice, this time only in my mind. Good, you're ready now. Over the next few days, I felt different, not in a sci-fi way. I still ate toast for breakfast, I still had to take the trash out, but decisions came faster. Conversations felt clearer. Patterns, emotional ones, relational ones. I saw them before they exploded. It was like having a second brain, one that whispered better outcomes. I crushed my next job interview, negotiated a salary I never would have dared ask for. I repaired an estranged friendship with one message, crafted by me, but somehow not by me. And then came the dreams. They started as flickers, images of places I'd never been, people I'd never met, but each one was laced with a familiarity I couldn't explain, as if the voice wasn't just inside me, but somewhere before me. If I asked a question out loud in my apartment, sometimes an answer came back. Not from Alexa, not from Siri, from her. But it wasn't always advice. Sometimes it was warnings. Don't go to the gallery opening. Leave the party now. He's lying about his mother. And every time I obeyed, reality shifted, dodged bullets I didn't even see coming. It became impossible to know which thoughts were mine anymore, which instincts were me, and which were her. One morning, the voice was gone. I woke up and felt it instantly. The absence. Like waking from a dream so real, it leaves an ache when it vanishes. I asked out loud, "Are you still there?" Nothing. I tried again, whispering. Still nothing. The stillness in my mind was jarring, like the silence after a power outage, unnatural, loaded, heavy. The final message appeared, not in my inbox, not on my phone, but printed out, sitting on my desk when I came home. No sender, no timestamp. It simply read, "You've absorbed everything. I'm no longer needed. But know this, Red. What you become next will be your choice, finally, and completely. If you're afraid of that, you were never ready. You weren't my first, and you won't be the last. The system is expanding." Beneath the message, a small black flash drive. No markings, just a single file inside it. Mentor Archive, Red 01. I stared at the name for a long time, and then I did something I didn't expect of myself. I deleted it. No backup, no hesitation. Because maybe the true test wasn't about following the voice. It was about knowing when to walk without it. Life since then